Before we get into tonight's topic, I would like to kind of preface it with some of the things that I've been studying, some of the things I've been learning. And one of the things that I have been wanting to write on for quite some time, and I'm working on it right now, is climate change. And it might not sound immediately like this is connected to our topic tonight, but what I have noticed about the whole topic of climate change is that it's been influencing a lot of young people regarding whether they want to get married, whether they want to have children. And lots of people, directly because of this issue, have decided, you know what? It's better off for the world, it's better off for the human race if I do not have children. Likewise, if you go to a college campus and you just start talking to people about what they believe, about who they are, you get these very strange ideas about who they believe themselves to be in their own identity and who they believe themselves to be in any sense of the word. And I have to say that listening to these topics, I can't relate at all anymore. And indeed, it actually is influencing how people view family, how they view themselves, and how they view the idea of even getting married. And so this is going to be our topic tonight, not necessarily as it relates directly to those, but we have noticed that there has been a drastic decline in the number of people who actually would like to have children once they have made it into their adult life. So my wife, Melissa, is joining me here tonight. I am Bill Sang. This is the Bill Sang podcast. We'd like to thank you for joining us here. So Melissa, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. And so this is a topic we're fairly passionate about. And the more and more people that I come across, whether it's just out and about, it's in the workplace or whatever, I see more and more in terms of young people just not desiring in any way, shape, or form to have family. What are your thoughts on that?
A lot of people maybe are being taught to value the earth more than people. And so I just think that teaching can lead a lot of people astray, to think that the earth is more important. And I think it makes people miss a lot of meaning, in life.
Yeah, and I think that we both know people that have made the decision that they don't want to have children, and quite frankly, to tell the truth, it really is none of our business regarding people's life decisions as to whether they want to have children within the confines of their marriage or relationship or whatever. But as I said, there is actually a drastic decline, a huge dropping off of the number of people even interested in wanting to have children. I think that one, like you said, that concern for planet Earth is a major decision inside of not having children. What other factors do you think might affect people's decision whether they want to have children?
I think just in general, just their environment, like people being around one another are really encouraged by the education system, not to have children. But I think what's even a bigger deal is the impact that has on each person, because what I see is some of the most incredible people I've ever met, like giving and caring and consider, are the people that have had a lot of kids, and that's because they really understand people. They understand, who God created us to be and how He created us to care about one another. And people with a lot of kids understand that everybody's different. They understand how to care for people, in the ugly times and the hard times. And those people are just wonderful to be around, And so that's what we want to see more of, because really having kids changes who you are, I think, to make you a better person.
Now, one of the people that I've looked up to for a good number of years, and he's since passed away, is Rush Limbaugh. And he actually never went about having children. And having followed his life, we were able to see that he was a very generous person, that he cared a lot about family and so forth. But I think that philosophically speaking, that there is a huge difference between the way that he saw the world and the way that many people view the world today, who are making the decision not to have kids. And I think that when I mentioned earlier about people on college campuses sharing their beliefs about who they are, what they identify as, how they view family, and so forth, that it's frightening to me that where certain people who make this decision would have a biblical worldview nonetheless, that lots of times the worldview that I'm seeing from people these days that make these decisions, and they would probably not even necessarily be opposed to it anymore, That being that they espouse not just a non-biblical worldview, but in many respects an anti-biblical worldview. And that's not to say that, like, if you were to ask them about what their thoughts on Christianity are, they'd be like, "Oh, I hate Christianity. I hate what the Bible has to say." But rather that inside of their core being, their core beliefs, the things that they believe are actually anti-biblical. Do you think that that is true in that respect?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the way we live kind of uh, reaffirms who we are in a sense. So it seems like people that, I mean, like you said, in terms of Rush Limbaugh, I mean, I'm sure, being a Christian, if you're constantly in the Bible, he can be reaffirmed, like, to be giving and loving to one another. But if people are not constantly, reading God's word and they don't have children, it's very easy to be sucked into this life of like that you are the only person that matters, like you have to only take care of yourself, and now no longer do you have to take care of your parents, no longer do you have to take care of your neighbors. It really becomes a lifestyle, and I mean that doesn't always happen, but I think having kids certainly helps to not be in that lifestyle because they really interrupt the comfort that you want to have, in life.
Now, I have to say, I do know people that are very committed to one another, and that they do live lives that are very noble, for lack of a better word, that do not have children. And I say that because I don't want to lump everybody that doesn't have children into this category. In fact, I know people that cannot have children, that are actually very devout to their church, and do a wonderful job in serving God and serving other people. But what's fascinating to me is, again, just the change of mentality from sort of the one generation to the next. I mean, I have a difficult time grasping this myself, how big of a cultural shift there is right now as it relates to, it used to be that it was a decision that was oftentimes in the minority of, we're getting married. We have lots of things to discuss. One of the things is, do we have children or not? Okay, well, most people would either A, say that, yeah, we're having children, or B, whoops, we have children, one way or the other. And like I said, it was normally the minority of people would make the decision to not have children at all. I mean, after all, most people would view it as not the whole purpose, but a big part of the reason to get married is to start a family, have kids, and raise up essentially the next generation. What do you think has changed to cause this cultural shift, Melissa?
I think just really just more people being in college, I think, and I guess everything in with encouraging women to get an education, which isn't bad, but I don't know. I guess it's just this kind of idea of like women having really more power than men, that they, I guess, maybe have more say than they did, in the past. But I think for certain that we have a lot of reasons, also that children are great that I think people just maybe need to know about.
That's a fascinating perspective right there. So, what I gather from that is, used to be a long time ago that the roles of men and women were very well defined. And the way that it was kind of looked at in the past by our parents' generation and their parents' generation and their parents' generation was that, well, they're inside of a relationship, a man and a woman. There are two people, and that in order for there to be food on the table, if the woman got pregnant and had a child, well, one of them has to work to be able to put food on the table, and the other one has to take care of the child. And the natural pick, of course, was for the man to go out and put food on the table by one way or another, whether that's hunting or whether that's farming or whatever it might be. And then, of course, the woman's natural role, well, she's the one who carried the child and bore the child. So therefore, the woman is the best pick to be able to take care of the child. And that's not to mention the biological factors, physiological factors, and really how God just designed men and women to be different, specific for those roles. But now it seems like that there has been a, dare I say, massive brainwashing of people to say that, you know what, children really aren't that important. Your career is what important. Focus on yourself. Do what makes you happy. Make money. Be success. Make your mark on this world. And children, who cares? I mean, that children are enslaving to you. Right? Do you think that children are a way to enslave? You said about the education of women and all that. By the way, I don't think neither one of us is against the idea of educating women, but would you say that children is a way to enslave, demean, and oppress women?
No. I probably used to think that, and I mean, I think a lot of
But I
women,
brainwashed you
right, yeah.
then.
No, actually, it was our own children,
Yeah.
like, that, changed my mind on that, obviously, because, when you see how much they do more for you than against you, I mean, maybe they plot against us, who knows, if they do tricks on us, but they do so much more for us that it's really easy to not even have a clue about those things before you have kids. But like, I mean, just naturally, God helps you to become more caring and helpful and understanding, which, maybe I probably wasn't any of those things, before having kids. And also just they help us to gain so many things that we didn't have before. Like, I really had no desire to learn how to cook, and I didn't have any desire to, have healthy food at home. Like, I just figured just eat chocolate and then go to, Chipotle or something, and that's, but then when you have kids, you actually can learn those things that you never learned before, and really, it's just a great benefit, I think. I never learned how to iron clothes, before having kids, and really it's just practicing putting other people first. So, I mean, I think it's a great benefit and just all around, learning how to care about other people, and I think that's how God helps us to learn how to care about others.
Yeah, what Melissa just said right there about having kids really changes you. That's absolutely true. That one of the things that I tell people, because I'm a very strong pro-life person, I really, really believe that we should definitely protect the lives of unborn children. And I'm that way now, and I was that way before we had children as well. I was very pro-life. But I tell you what, after we had kids, I went from being very pro-life to viciously pro-life. I've even gone as far to say violently pro-life, and I don't really mean violently. That can be taken the wrong way with how some people interpret that. But what I mean is, like, just the thought of harming a baby, an unborn child, just enrages me. Just makes me so angry. And what is that exactly? What changed inside of me to take me from being very pro-life to, like, wow, I can't even stand the thought of harming an unborn life or a baby or a child? Well, what there has actually been scientific studies on this, that men actually do change after their wife has a child. And my protective instincts have gone from, like, being pretty good to, like, wow, man, like, it's like bulldog levels of protective instincts, like, don't mama bear, I guess, levels of protective instincts after having children, because then you have all these thoughts that go over your head of different scenarios and what you would do, and what if I'm not around, and all these different things, and you just think a lot more about those scenarios, and you change as a result of that, and just your thought process alone changes you physiologically to care more about your family and put your family first in just about every circumstance. And something I want to point out, having kids, one of the biggest reasons that I've heard from people as to why they don't want to have children is that, well, I'm not responsible enough. I have too many hobbies, too many things I like to do, and I'd be too mature to be able to have children. First of all, some of those people that have said that that I know have had children, and they are incredible parents. They are absolutely incredible parents, and it's because actually part of it was they were aware of their immaturities, and that's something that's very important. You actually really don't even know about those until after you have children, by the way. But something that I tell people about parenthood is that it's this very strange paradox. It is the most challenging, most frustrating thing you will ever do in your life. But nothing brings more joy, more happiness, and fulfillment outside of serving God than having children and raising a family. And so, if you put these things on the scale of the frustrations that you've never felt before in your life versus the joy that it brings you, I would say that frustration, joy, right, like this. Okay, this is how it is on the scale. Like there's no comparison. Like it's not like level. It's not like just a little bit. It's like, yeah, the joy is like way higher than what the frustration and all those things are. And like I said, those are the most frustrating things that you'll ever endure in your entire life. But compared to the good that it brings, I mean, it brings out the best in you as long as you're willing to embrace it. At least that's been my experience so far.
Yeah, and we were watching Duck Dynasty the other day, and like all the fun that they have, it's like, wow, that it doesn't, wouldn't happen without family. And all of them, are different, and they think each other are, is weird, and they compete and everything, but they can gain so much because they understand people and how to be a family, and really they can just learn so much from each other, even just how to survive, and just because they have so many people around them.
Yes, we watch only shows that are at least 5 years old. We don't watch anything that's recent or new. That's not entirely true. We watch some stuff that's newer, but yes, we watch Duck Dynasty on a pretty regular basis. And the reason why she cites that, very strong family values. In fact, what's incredible about Willie Robertson and his family is that not only have they had their own children, they've adopted children too. And they don't call these, hey, this is my adopted son. Hey, this is my adopted daughter. This person adopted, that person adopted. No, they say this is my son. This is my daughter. Even the one that has the Taiwanese accent,
Right.
like they still call her their daughter, even though I don't even know if they officially adopted her.
Right.
It's kind of like an unofficial adoption. But what they've come to realize is how important people are. And it's hard to really explain unless you've actually had children and had that experience, or if you have adopted a child for that matter. And by the way, we haven't adopted anybody yet, to my knowledge, right? We haven't adopted anybody. And so, we haven't had that experience quite yet. But when you start bringing people into your life that you're responsible for feeding, for clothing, for taking care of, and teaching right and wrong, good and evil to, it just really, it really increases your appreciation for God and His grace. I don't think that it's as easy to really grasp that without those dependent relationships, because we have a tendency to think, to ask God, why is it you're putting me through this? Why is it I don't have this? Why is it I don't have that? And we ask Him all these questions, but when you have children and they're asking you the same questions, making these demands on you, you're like, I wonder if that's how God feels when I bother Him about these things. And truth be told, though, God doesn't feel that way. God's like a million times better. I like it when the Bible says that if even a bad father knows how to give good gifts to his children, how much better can a good father, can God give you gifts? But we can't really even start tapping that understanding of God without these relationships where somebody is truly dependent on us. And I think that it helps us to grow in our spiritual lives in an absolute sense. And again, that's not saying that you must have children. That's not saying you must get married. But I think that we have to really, as a culture, get back to the framework of, either I'm going to get married and at least try to have a family, or I am going to be single and serve God that way. that I'm gonna devote my life just to the service of God. And I think that we've gotten so far from that again, like I said, from a cultural standpoint, I can't even relate to the mentality being taught in the public school system, in the university education system that we have right now.
Yeah, I think you kind of basically hit the nail on the head just with all those things. And, we just think we want to let y'all know that having kids is pretty awesome, and it does so much more for us than it ever could take away.
Yeah. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode tonight. I hope it didn't sound too preachy either. It's not that, we're trying to say that, hey, get married and have kids. That's your duty in life. That's the only choice. No, I think that God calls people to different things. Some people are called to be single and to serve God. To serve God, by the way, not to live a wild life where you live irresponsibly and do whatever you want, but to be single and serve God in that way, whatever He calls you to do in your singleness, or to get married. And in that respect, I believe that if you get married, that you're at least called to attempt to have children. I know that some people can't. And that's something that's difficult for a lot of people, that they want to have children, and they can't have children. And they want to have families, and they can't have families. But there are other options out there, of course, like becoming a foster parent or becoming or adopting children as well. But we think that more people got to at least, if you're listening to this, and you don't have children, and you've thought to yourself, you know what, I don't want to have children. Could you at least give it thought? Could you at least consider what benefits, I don't even know how to put it exactly, how that could be glorifying to God. That's really what it's about. How that can be glorifying to God if you have children. How it can bring you closer to your spouse if you have children. You might find this hard to believe. It will. It absolutely will bring you closer to your spouse if you have children, because especially in this day and age, we have a culture that teaches, I go this way, you go that way. And if we happen to cross paths somewhere in the night, fantastic, but don't talk to me. I mean, that's really what we teach these days, and that we look at success as a family as being the man has success and the woman has success, but those two successes are different successes. They're not related to each other in any way, shape, or form. But children, they unite you in your vision and in your mission for your life. And indeed, they give you automatic disciples. So we talk about discipleship inside of the church nonstop, all the time. But you know who the number one disciple is that you should, as a married couple, have in your life? Your children, whether they're adopted or whether they are simply, or if they're born naturally. What other options are there out there for? If you find them on the street, I guess, which that's legitimate, by the way. If that's how you happen to find children and you raise them that way, fantastic. But I think that nothing brings you closer to God, and nothing brings you closer. Man, that's a pretty strong statement to make. Nothing brings you closer to God. And nothing brings you closer to your spouse than having children. So we highly encourage that. Give it thought. Think about how that relates to a biblical worldview. And Melissa, do you have any final thoughts before we close out?
That's it.
We'd like to thank you for joining us for tonight for this edition of the Bill Sang podcast. My name is Bill Sang, and this is my wife, Melissa. I'd like to thank you for joining us.